Hey guys, it's Tyler with TCG Rewind. Today I wanted to do a video talking about the recent tournament we had, Tengu Plant Takeover 7 in the Tengu Plant Discord. And this is a big tournament because this is the one that leads up to Tengu Mania, which is the big boy. That's the tournament that, we have free entry with cash prize. I think we have close to a $400 prize pool this time around. So if you're interested in playing some Tengu Plant format, if you're interested, this tournament this Saturday is going to be the one to make. So make sure that you guys join the Tengu Plant Discord. I'll put a link to it in the description below so you can come participate. But like I said, this tournament here is the one that leads up to it. So this is where people are testing their spicy builds and trying to bring what they can to Tengu Mania, see what's working. It's basically just a free entry, no prize tournament that, you just use to test for the bigger boy. So we'll do a metagame breakdown. We'll talk about what was played. And, we saw very diverse representation. As always, this format is incredibly diverse. If you haven't played it, it is amazing. Anything goes here, and we'll take a look. So heroes are still remaining popular. We had 2 hero beat, 1 gate hero, 1 diva hero, and then we had 2 Tengu Plant, 2 Six Samurai, 1 Jurak, 1 Naturia, 1 Gigavice, 1 TG, 1 Agents, 1 Disaster Dragon, 1 Piper Chaos, 1 Dark Calling, shout out to who needs meta, 1 Frog Monarch, 1 Infernity, 1 Water Synchro, and 1 Rat Toolbox. So again, very diverse representation, and we're seeing a lot of the typical trends of, still seeing a lot of heroes, and we're still seeing a lot of our standard like meta decks, right? So you got Tengu Plants represented, you got agents, you got heroes. All those decks are still being seen, but we're just seeing a lot of extra stuff kind of thrown out there. We even see TG as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, we'll start it with 6th place. Normally I just cover top 4, but I wanted to cover 5th and 6th because a lot of people are interested in Hydropumps build, and he placed 5th. But we'll talk about Ariki first. So Ariki got 6th place with agents, and honestly, I actually really like this list. I think this is a smart approach. As I've said before, I really think agents do need back row. A lot of decks or builds opt to cut it, but I think back row just makes such a big difference in this deck. So I'm glad to see that maybe people are starting to shift back to back row and agents, because at the end of the day, like a D prison, let's say you normal summon an Earth and you search a Venus, and then you set a D prison and you can protect your monster for a turn. Well, now you can summon Venus, get a double gotchi off of it, and it just goes really hard, right? Like, it just opens up so many more plays to leaving this on the board. And a lot of times you just need that extra protection, because for the most part, this whole deck is very walled off by Thunder King. So having D prison, having torrential, stuff like that can really help deal with things like Thunder King. And then they also mentioned that they were playing Spirit Reaper because, they just really think this card is good. But, aside from that random reason, I do think that Spirit Reaper actually has some merit for the same reason of, again, if you're dealing with a Thunder King, this gives you a stall tool that is kind of difficult for a lot of decks to out. So I think it's a pretty smart call. It's also a level 3, so at a certain point you can overlay and bring something back. It works well with Tour Guide, because if they Veiler, you can flip the Spirit Reaper, all kinds of stuff like that. So really cool list. Overall, I think this is pretty smart. They even opted for 1 Spirit Reaper inside as well, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure what scenario they're citing this in, but I'm sure there are decks that really struggle versus this, so it's actually kind of good. But yeah, overall, really cool list, pretty standard. But I do really like that we're moving back to the back row, because I do think back row and agents is just so important. So moving on, we're talking about Hydropumps list. I know a lot of people were curious about this one, and I love this list. I think this is such a smart direction to take Infernities, because it's something I talked about in my video where I played Infernity Tournament. I actually played Hydropumps' original Infernity list that he has on his YouTube channel, and it was talking about just how when I played in tournament with the deck, I felt like the combo version just was so frail. Like, I feel like so many things interrupted you and caused you problems and made it just really difficult to actually combo off. Like, when you get the combo off, it is insane. It's almost game-winningly insane, but at the same time, it's really difficult, and it's super easy to get walled off or interrupted. And so I always felt like when I sided into the randomizer control, I felt like the deck got a lot better. Like, I really just felt like it was overall safer, and I almost always wanted to be sided into this, and so it made me really feel like I just needed to main the randomizer control instead of the standard Infernity like combo. And so that's what Hydropump actually opts to do, and we see a lot of unique cards in here. First thing is 2 Infernity Avenger. This is pretty interesting. I'm not sure why this was chosen, but the only thing I can think of is because of the fact that we have 3 randomizer. People swing over randomizer a lot. That lets you bring back a level 1 tuner when it dies. And then he's also opting to run things like, you know, Formula Synchron in the side deck, or in the extra deck, which is really cool because you can, like, for example, they can kill a randomizer, you can bring back Avenger, and then you can, like, bring back the randomizer with Necromancer, draw a card, then Synchro for 2, and it just kind of gives you another draw. So it just lets you gain a lot of advantage off this card. I also like Offerings to the Doomed and Triple MST. This just gives so many responses to the problem cards that this deck has to deal with. So I really just like generic spot removal in this deck. And then we even have cards like Infernity Break and Infernity Force. This is a really interesting one, but I actually like this a lot in this build as well. This card says, activate only when an Infernity monster is selected as an attack target. While you have no cards in your hand, destroy the attacking monster and special summon 1 Infernity monster from your graveyard. So this is really nice with Infernity Randomizer, right? If they attack, you flip it up, it's a Sakuretsu armor, and then it also brings back an Infernity, so you can bring back Randomizer, or even better, bring back Necromancer, which then can bring back Randomizer, right? So it sets up all kinds of cool plays, but I just really like the idea of, you know, being able to destroy something, bring something back, and then draw cards. It's almost like a pseudo-hero blast, but just slightly worse, right? But the other thing that's nice about it is since it does have Infernity in its name, then Break can banish it to pop a card. So you're just making Infernity Break as live as possible for extra spot removal, which again, I really do think this deck desperately needs. We then have Triple Inferno. It makes sense just to set up Graveyard. Reinforced Truth because Randomizer is a warrior, so this just gets one from deck. We have Solemn Judgment, and then Reckless Greed. I actually kind of like this. I think it's pretty unique. The thing that's nice about it is it's just a draw 2, and then it skips your draw phases. And when you're running things like Offerings to the Doomed, you can just stack that skip draw phase, so it doesn't really matter. And then also, like, since you're running so few monsters, you don't really risk bricking on the monsters that much. So you can draw 2 cards, skip your next 2, and then draw more off Randomizer. It just kind of lets you control when you're drawing your cards, which is actually really optimal for Infernity because they have so many back row and so many cards that rely on having no cards in hand. So yeah, really cool list. I actually really love this. And then we also got to talk about in the side deck, Infernity Guardian. This actually was played on stream, so you know, if you want to go check it out, go check out my live feeds and watch the stream where we saw this card actually being played. While you have no cards in your hand, this face-up card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. It's actually a really pesky card to remove if your opponent just doesn't have any cards in their hand. Like, within, like, Tengu Plant format, like, Compulse is the only thing that'll really get rid of it if they have it, if they don't have it in their, like, you know, if they have nothing in their hand, but you can't really force them to put cards in their hand. So this is just kind of a pesky card to remove. I mean, you technically can banish it, so, like, Chaos Monsters and stuff like that, but still, this is a very frustratingly annoying card to out, and we kind of saw a bit of that in the tournament. Then also, I'm not sure what the double Cyclone was for, so Hyperpump, if you're watching this, I would really like to know why you ran double Cyclone. That's a pretty interesting card. I also really like the Super Poly with the Shining. Like I said, this is a really good counter side to heroes. Being able to fuse their board feels really good, but I also think that maybe you need more targets, so I'm wondering how much of the extra deck here is, like, actually super important. Especially, like, I don't even know if you, like, I guess 100 Eyes is okay, but you're not running Mirage and stuff like that. So I just wonder how much of this is all necessary. Like, do you need Mistworm? Like, you could probably main some of these targets for the hero matchup. But other than that, like I said, really love the direction that he's taking with it. I really hope he refines this list and runs it back for Tengu Mania, you know, makes it a little bit better and, you know, learns from what this tournament results perform, because 5th place is nothing to scoff at. That's still really good, but I would love to see a refined list for Tengu Mania, because I do think this is probably the strongest way to build Infernities in this format. So I really would like to see where it goes and how far he can take it. Moving on to 4th place, and you're not going to believe this one. We actually had I Am the Wanderer, who was playing Strawberrow's Naturia list. And looking at this at face, you might think, like, okay, you might just write off this tournament, right? You might just be like, okay, this was really troll. But actually, I actually think Naturia was a smart meta call, given how popular heroes are. Because if you think about it, Hero Beat as a deck, outside of having exactly Honest in hand, they do not have a main deck out to Bamboo Shoot. All their monsters are 19, and if they can't use spells or traps, they literally just can't play the game. And we kind of saw this in the tournament where Bamboo Shoot was like actually is what kind of ended up beating Hydropump out, the Infernity randomizer control. If you can't flip your spells and traps, and you like eventually if you're drawing cards and you have too many things in your hand, you can't really do anything about the Bamboo Shoot. So it was pretty spicy. We definitely saw it win, but this deck also plays off cards like Naturia Dragonfly. Can't be destroyed by battle with a monster that has 2,000 or more attack, but gains 200 attack for every Naturia monster in your graveyard. So this card has a really obnoxious effect, because as you play out the game, you know, cherries fill the graveyard fast, Cliff fills the graveyard fast. This thing can get pretty big, and then it really just can't be destroyed by things that are bigger than it. So it's just kind of an obnoxious card. One card I do want to talk about is like Cosmo Beat, though. I feel like this card low-key sucks. I mean, it is a level 2 tuner, and I get it for like going into Barkion. This whole deck is trying to counter the back row decks, but yeah, I don't know. I really just don't know how I feel about this card. I feel like it's just not that good, but it also was like playing the combo off Pumpkin. You summon Pumpkin, and then you special summon Cosmo Beat or Cherries, and then you can just make either turn 1 Nat Beast or turn 1 Barkion, depending what you're up against. So that's kind of cool, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like maybe there's a world where you could just tech in like Lone Fire like Spore Glow Up or something, and it'd be fine, because there's so many plant monsters you can just banish, right? With Spore, which makes it really, really versatile in this deck. So I would like to see that, maybe, but again, I haven't really played a lot of just pure Naturia, so I don't know how viable that strategy is. Either way, really, really cool deck choice, and a super amazing run to hit 4th place with this deck. I mean, everyone on stream was really hyped. We were hoping that we could see a Hidden Arsenal finals, and, you know, we'll get to that part a little later, but for now, we'll move on to 3rd place, and it was Himne, who was playing Water Synchro. And this is a very refined Water Synchro list. I actually really like it. Himne talked to me about why he's been kind of tampering with this deck, and it was something that he was talking about where, like, I talk on my channel a lot about how I think Mind Control is just one of the best cards, if not the best card in Tengu Plant format. It's so powerful, and if you're running Enemy Controller, you basically have extra copies of Mind Control, and Enemy Controller is almost, like, more... it's, like, more versatile. It's slightly different. It's not as broken, but it can be, right? And this is the deck that just abuses it the most, which I think Himne wants to take advantage of, and so it's really, really powerful. The only thing I will say about this list is, I mean, I will say, like, having triple Caius in the deck, having access to the plant engine, your plays are so versatile. You have so many options in a single turn, and Caius is really powerful against a lot of the decks in the meta. Like, for example, again, Heroes being so popular, hitting the Shining with Caius can just win you a game. But also, the one gripe I have with this list is 2 Veiler, 2 Maxi. I think this deck absolutely needs 3 Veilers. I saw a lot of Trishulas resolving on stream in this tournament, and I think that 3 Veiler is a necessity if you're running a Frog engine, because a well-timed Veiler can just, or like well-timed Trishula can just blow this deck out of the water. So I do not like having any less than 3 Veiler for a deck that like plays so heavily on the graveyard like this. That would be my only major change, but other than that, I do think this is a very good list, and I would even consider playing something like this myself. I think it's very well constructed. So congrats to Himne for taking 3rd. We'll move on to 2nd place. We had Rodney, who was playing Gate Heroes. And if you don't know how this works, I did a video on Gate Heroes where I talk about how the combo works. It's basically having Fusion Gate and Chain Material lets you loop Electrum and then make fusions with 2 Electrums to basically fill your board with a bunch of hero fusions, and then you end by like adding 2 hero monsters back from the banished pile to your hand. So it's a massive plus, and basically outside of Dark Hole, your opponent can't deal with it. And you know, for the most part, again, I think my only gripe with the list is Maxi over Veiler. I definitely think this deck needs Veiler way more than Maxi. My personal take. I know you can technically draw materials, and that's like the idea, but I never really feel like Maxi generates a lot of value in this format. So like it's like a 1-for-1 or a +1 at best if you're lucky, and I just don't feel like that is worth it compared to preventing a Trishula or a Caius, which this deck is very, very weak to. So yeah, I mean, overall the list does look very clean. I don't have any gripes with how this list is built, but I will say that I think the biggest one, like my only issue with it, is the Veiler over Maxi. especially because there's no Valors in side deck. I just can't believe that that is like functional. That being said, one thing I will say is very smart in this list is the Prohibition. Running Prohibition, this card looked really, really good on stream, and I think this card is just generically insane in this deck because you can call things like Effect Veiler before you combo off. You can do all kinds of things to make this extremely viable, which will let you, you know, basically ensure you can combo off. You can even technically combo off and then call Dark Hole if you're worried about it. Like maybe Effect Veiler is already called, or you know they don't have Veiler. You could call Dark Hole, and that could just win you a game because you can make your board and win. So I really like this card. I think this is really, really smart. I also like the triple super poly in a format where you're with where heroes are popular and you get to side triple super poly and you're running Thunder Dragon, so you already get like pretty easy searchable discard fodder. This card goes really hard, right? So I really like it. I think this list is clean. I also like the addition of twin-headed Thunder Dragon to it. Just being able to use these for something outside of just extra fodder for shining. It's nice to be able to just make a big monster with your kind of useless cards you search in your hand. Like Thunder Dragon is absolutely very good in this list, but I also like being able to fuse the two together just to put a beater on board. Sometimes you just need it, and that's what's going to get you there. So, yeah. Really like this list, really clean. Rodney played extremely well in the finals. If you know, like I said, go check out that finals, guys. It was a really, really crazy match. And we got to talk about the last deck in the finals, which is where I was hitting at the Hidden Arsenal finals that we were all hoping for. And it was Amazing Mike Man back at it again, playing the Jurak. And this is super cool because, again, we're really seeing the growth of a player who is absolutely trying to put us all into a deck, right? We saw Amazing Mike Man play this. He got third in the last tournament, and then now he's taking first with it. He won all the way through winners, went undefeated on the day. Like, I mean, obviously he dropped games, but he didn't drop any matches, and that's really, really cool. So, looking at this list, you know, a lot of people were talking after he won, saying, oh, Juraks aren't that good, or like maybe he got lucky, whatever. But like I said, he got third in the last one, he won this one, and one of my biggest things I really want to talk about is I think Juraks actually have merit to being good. They're a strictly better Flamel deck, right? And the thing that makes them so good is Velo just crashes with Tengu. And if you can crash with Tengu, you get to special summon out, like, you basically can blow through all your Velos to special summon, like, to clear their Tengus, and then you still get something at the end. So you can get a Guaiba, you can get a Dino. You have a 3-of Searcher spell for any card in your deck, and you even have a effective Soul Charge where you can bring back your 3 Aolo, which can bring back anything else in your graveyard. There's also just a lot of decks in the meta right now that leave random straggler cards on board. Like, for example, they just leave a, you know, like a Treeborn Frog or like a Dandy token, and you're just able to generate huge advantage off that. And this deck can just pump out Trishula so quickly and so easily, especially when abusing cards like Rekindling. And then the other thing I'll talk about is in a meta where heroes are super strong or popular, Forbidden Lance is really, really good against heroes. Because, for example, I'll play out the scenario, right? Let's say you normal summon a Guaiba, your opponent has a hero on the field, right? They have an alias. You declare an attack on the alias. Your opponent is then forced to make a choice because they're assuming you have a damage step spell to deal with it. So they either have to Gemini Spark and try to kill your Guaiba, which you then will have Lance for, and if you Lance to protect your Guaiba, then they don't get the draw. Or they have to basically let it go to damage step, and you'll kill the alias in damage step, in which they can't chain the Gemini Spark, and then you get to special summon something from deck, and then they have a dead Gemini Spark. So either way, it's very, very good and advantageous for the dinosaur player, which is why I think, or the Jurak player, which is why I think that this deck actually has merit to be strong. You know, like I said, people memed on it, but I genuinely think this deck is a pretty strong contender. My only gripe with the list that he took, which I think he'll probably make these changes because a lot of people were talking about this, is one, I think Bottomless Trap Hole over Deep Prison isn't worth. I definitely think Deep Prison is just overall better. I'm not sure, but maybe there's a reason for this. Maybe he tested Bottomless and thought it was better. And then also, he was opting for 3 Giganoto, and I actually think he made a good case for running multiple, but I don't think you need 3, especially because there's no Ancient Fairy Dragon. And as we saw in the finals, if he would have just been running Ancient Fairy Dragon and Closed Forest inside, he could turn off the fusion gate, and that would have been really strong. But also, just generically, this deck is very weak to Gravekeepers because Necro Valley is so strong. But it can easily make level 7s with the likes of Dino and stuff like that. So having the opportunity to just set up Closed Forest is very, very good. So it's definitely worth talking about. It's definitely a change I would encourage making. But overall, this is super cool to see. And oh yeah, we gotta talk about Molten Destruction. This card's in the side deck. I'm still not sure what this is for. I will say, if you're gonna run it, maybe like why not just main it? Like if you're gonna side it, I don't know. Like my thought is maybe he sides this in against heroes, so all his monsters can beat over the 19, which is pretty smart, honestly. Because with things like Lance and stuff like that, you can really adjust what happens. But yeah, like I said, this is just really cool to me that a player can try to force a deck so much and keep working at it, and you kind of see the growth of that player with the deck. I'm sure Amazing Mike Man is going to have some improvements going into Tengu Mania after this tournament, and I'm really excited to see how far he can take this deck. There'll be a lot more competitors in it, and so he can really make a good statement for the strength of Juraks in this tournament, assuming he can do well again. But yeah, other than that, that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Like I said, Tengu Mania this Saturday. I will be streaming it, but make sure you guys come play. It's free entry, can win some money. Put a link to the Discord in the description below. I'll put a link to my hero video in the description below if you want to see how the Fusion Gate hero combo works. And, you know, check out the stream if you want to see some of the gameplay from last week as well, because that's all on my channel as well. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe if you want to see more content like that. And don't forget to have a great time dueling today.